This video is for multiplying decimals with an area model. First we will use manipulatives and then we will do a drawing. Here's our legend. The flat square is 1, the stick is 1/10, and the cube is 1/100th. So here the first question is 1 3/10 times 2 5/10. I've made an area model and it's 1 3/10 across the top. So one whole and then 3/10 if you look at the edge of it. And then down the side edge, we need 2 5/10. So down the side edge, 1, 2, and then 5/10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You just need to remember that the side length of this square is one whole. And then the side length of this, it doesn't really matter if it is a rod or a cube because we're only looking at the edge of it, and the edge is 1/10 of the length of this square. So if you fill this in and make a rectangle, the answer to this multiplication question is how many squares you have here. So to find the product of 1 3/10 times 2 5/10, we rearrange our squares here to figure out how much we have in total. So we've got 2 wholes, because from our original legend, this is one whole. Then how many tenths do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, plus 1 extra. So that means I've got 3 wholes, and then a tenth. And then how many hundredths do I have? 10, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I write all of this down, I've got 3 wholes, 2 tenths, and 5 hundredths. So 3 and 25 hundredths. I'm going to show you how to use the area model to do the same question, 1 3/10 times 2 5/10. So this part here is kind of like what your orange block setup would be, and then here is where we're going to write the length, basically. So across the top we've got 1 whole, the length here, and 3/10. So we write 1 for this part, and then 3/10 for this part. And then our 2 5/10 goes down the side. And you can put these on either side. It doesn't really matter which order you do them in. So that is 2, the length of that, and the length of this part is 5/10. And then you use these lengths to find the area of each rectangle that they make up. Then we add the areas together, and that's your answer. Because area is a product of the two sides. So here we go. This rectangle is 2 by 1, or 2 groups of 1. So it is 2. And you can kind of picture it. It's exactly 2 squares like that. That is the area of this part. Let's do the square next. So it is 5/10 of a whole. So 5/10 of 1 is just 5/10. It would be like if you took this and you only had 5/10 of it, so half of it. 5/10 of 1 is 5/10. This rectangle is 2 because it's 2 here and it's a rectangle, so it's the same on both sides. 2 by 3/10. And I'm going to write it this way because it helps me think of it. I'm going to say 3/10 of, times means of or groups of 2. And then I would estimate. So I would say, okay, 3/10 is close to half. Half of 2 is about 1. So my answer should be close to 1. I know that 3 times 2 is 6. And I'm going to put the decimal here because 6/10 is closer to 1 than 6. You can also think of it as two groups of 3/10. So if you have 3/10 of two groups of them, then you have 6/10. So there's different ways. You can choose whatever makes the most sense to you. So I'm just going to circle each area in green so when we add them up it's easier. All right, this one is 5/10 by 3/10, or 5/10 of 3/10. I know 5/10 is half, so it's half of 3/10. Or another way you could think of it is, remember we did these things where we shade them in. So if you have 5/10 shaded this way, so half of it, and then 3/10 this way, I'll do it in orange. Then this area is 15 little squares, and we know that the little cubes are hundredths. So that means I have 15 hundredths, and I write it like this, tenths, hundredths. So 5/10 times 3/10 is 15 hundredths. There's a lot of steps in this problem. Okay, now we've got our 4 areas. I'm going to add these two and put them here, add these and put them there, and then add them all together. You can add them however you want though. 2 and 6/10 is 2 and 6/10. 5/10 plus 15 hundredths. I've got 1/10 here, so that means I have 6/10 and 5 hundredths. And then you can add these two together. So 0 hundredths, 5 hundredths. 6/10 and 6/10 is 12/10, which is 2/10 and 1 whole because I regroup. 2 plus 1 is 3. Okay, so my answer after all that is 3 and 25 hundredths. I'm going to do one more example with the same method. 2 and 4/10 times 3 and 1/10. I'm going to write 3 and 1/10 across the top. So I have 3 and 1/10 here. And then down the side I've got 2 wholes and 4/10. It's not exactly to scale. So now I find the insides. 2 groups of 3 is 6. 1/10 of 2, or 2 groups of 1/10. So if this is a tenth, I have 2 of them, then I have 2/10. Now we're doing the bottom square, so 4/10 times 3, or 3 groups of 4/10. So if I've got 4/10, 3 groups of them, 10, I've got 10/10 to make a whole, and then 2/10 left over, so it's 1 and 2/10. And then 1/10 of 4/10. You can use this method if you want. So you could shade in 1/10 this way, and 4/10 the other way. And then the overlap is 4 little cubes, and we know that these cubes are hundredths, so it's 4 hundredths. And then I add up all of my decimals here. So I have got 6 plus 2/10 plus 1 and 2/10 plus 4 hundredths. Remember to line up your decimals. 4, 6 plus 1 is 7. Now let's estimate. Let's see if that makes sense. 2, I'm going to round that down to 2 times 3 is 6. And these are both, I rounded down for both of them, so it makes sense that my estimate is low. So that seems like it should be right. Yeah, that's the area model for finding decimal times decimal.